Hey, this is Antonio. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to have some fighting words. This video, I wanted to talk about the fight that took place over this weekend with Conor Benn versus Samuel Vargas. So, there's not much to talk about since it was a one-round blowout. I will say Conor Benn is looking amazing. He hasn't necessarily been put up there with the upper echelon of competition. I don't believe he hasn't broken the top 10 yet. Let's put it like that. However, he looks strong. He looks fit. 147 seems to be a good home for him, a good fit for him. Size-wise, everything seems to be right place for him. His hunger, his determination. Let me just break down the fight. Like I said, there wasn't really much to talk about. Weirdly, in the weigh-in, Samuel Vargas looked ripped. He looked ready to go. He was intense. There was a little bit of banter back and forth between the two combatants. And they show up, and I'm expecting him to put on what he showcased in that weigh-in. And I think he threw like maybe 3 punches the whole round. And he just kind of stood there like a piñata. And after the fight, it was funny because Conor said, I hit him and I waited to see what he was going to do. He did nothing, so I just wailed away. And that's exactly what happened. He did nothing. It was, I don't want to say it was weird because maybe it was a more powerful punch. It was a jab, but like it was a jab that just started everything off. A jab which pretty much started a sequence of punches. I don't want to say like, maybe he got stunned by a jab, but possibly he got stunned by a jab. And that just kind of took him out of his game. I don't really know why a jab would stun him that hard. But when I tell you he did nothing, he did nothing. He kind of just stood there, and maybe he was weathering the storm. Maybe he would just, feel it out and, all right, I'm gonna give you round 1, but I'll be back in round 2. But he was so buzzed and out of it, the referee had to come in. It was just a slaughterhouse. There was really nothing to talk about. Conor honestly just blew through him. He was like wet paper at that point. But what I really want to get into is after the fight and the post-fight interview when they asked who was next. And Conor said, I would be more than interested in Adrian Broner and Sean Porter. He mentioned some other names, but those are the 2 really big names that are interesting. And I gotta admit, in terms of styles, making fights, those 2 would be extremely entertaining. I would not mind seeing those fights at all. Adrian Broner needs something right now. Sean Porter needs something because honestly, Sean Porter is chasing the Terrence Bud Crawford fight, which I don't believe will happen just due to financial issues. He wants more money and they're not willing to pay him more. And he really has nowhere to go in terms of where he can go next. He's not going to get the Earl Spence fight, the rematch. Earl got what he wanted from Sean. He wanted the belt. He got a belt. He doesn't need anything else from Sean Porter. And it just seems like the Bud Crawford fight's not going to happen, mainly because Sean feels like he deserves more. And, you're a fighter. You deserve it. You're putting your life on the line. You should get all that you can get. However, all that he can get is not being offered. So therefore, he's passing on that, or at the moment seems to be passing on that. I do believe a match with Sean Porter versus Conor Benn would be explosive. You're talking about 2 different countries. You're technically talking about the new school of 147 versus now kind of like the veteran school of 147. Sean Porter's next way to go would be honestly 154 if he can't get what he wants at 147. And he's only getting older, and Sean Porter is really compact and has a lot of muscle, in which case cutting weight doesn't sound like fun or anything like at that point. But I would definitely be interested in watching Conor Benn versus Sean Porter. I would most definitely be interested in watching Conor Benn versus Adrian Broner. You're talking about 2 guys who can definitely use the mic and are not shy and believe in themselves. Adrian Broner, as many losses as he's had over the last 2 years, 3 years, he still believes highly in himself, and rightfully so, and I'll tell you why. Because nobody's washed him out. He's been beaten, but he hasn't been beaten up, and there's a difference. He doesn't walk out of fights with black eyes and bloody noses or anything like that. He walks out of a fight beaten on scorecards, and most of that is due to his inactivity to fight back because he gets lazy during rounds. So you get somebody like a Conor Benn who's young and brash and just very, confident. I'm not going to say cocky, but he's very confident. And rightfully so. He's been, as the English say, on a tear, and he's been winning. So why wouldn't he be confident? He's young, he's strong, he's hungry, he's on that path, and he just now got a belt. Why wouldn't he be confident? And then you have Adrian Broner, who, he's been campaigning that he just wants another belt. He wants another strap. Who doesn't want a strap? If you're going to be in this business, you want it for the straps. So those are two fights that I would two potential fights that I would definitely like to see, with Conor Benn and eat both of them. However, there is another bout that Eddie Hearn is pushing for, which is Conor Benn versus Amir Khan. In which case, it will make money because it's Amir Khan and it's Conor Benn. But in all fairness, I don't believe we need to see Amir Khan versus Conor Benn. If anything, Eddie Hearn would just be using Amir Khan for his name to put Conor Benn on a higher platform, basically. It's not as if anybody in their right mind believes that Amir Khan can wash out Conor Benn. I do believe he can take Conor Benn to school if he sticks to boxing. However, Amir Khan is a real fighter, and what I mean by that is once he gets hit, he's coming back for his. And that's where he gets caught, and that's where all the danger lies when it comes to Amir Khan. He doesn't know when to back off and just use his brain, and sometimes just say, okay, you got that one, or you even got this round, I'll come back in the next round, or I'll just retreat a little bit, get my composure, and figure out my next step. He doesn't do that. You hit him, he's going to hit you back, and he's going to be up in your face, and like I said, that's typically when he gets caught. So, in a perfect example, he was actually winning the Canelo fight until he lost it. He was actually winning the fight with Danny Garcia until he lost it. He has great hands. He's arguably one of the fastest at that weight. Great boxer, knows how to use his legs. However, he has that two little character flaws. One, this is it's questionable. And two, he doesn't know how to gather himself and just say, okay, let me just collect my thoughts and figure out what I'm going to do next. Now, if he can do that, you can't fix this, but he can fix that other thing and stay composed. If he can do that, I can honestly see him beating Conor Benn, believe it or not. Conor Benn does kind of come in like a wrecking ball. He's kind of like a more loose version of Sean Porter in a sense. He's a fierce body puncher. He gets up close and personal, and he's going for hooks. He's going for body shots. He's going for everything. But you definitely know where he's at all times, as opposed to somebody like an Amir Khan who's going to cut angles, who's going to work his steps, he's going to circle around, he's actually going to use the whole entire ring. Now, if Amir Khan can do that, great. If he cannot, I don't think that's his next best step. I think which would be the next best step for Amir Khan would be a Kell Brook, somebody who's on his level age-wise, and even, they're both on the tail end of their careers. I don't necessarily want to see Conor Benn destroy Amir Khan, especially at the tail end of his career. I think we ought to not to say he's so old and all that, but if he is to go on his last sail, I would like to see him go facing somebody a little easier, as opposed to this hungry lion. I don't want to see that. I think it would end very brutally, to be honest with you. And one more thing I will say about Conor Benn, I have been following his career and I really like him. I mean, he's the son of Nigel Benn, and who was also a champ. The way things are looking, Conor is definitely going to, a lot of times, how do I say this? So a lot of times, fighters will have children, and basically dad will overshadow the son, or the name will overshadow the son. The way Conor's looking, I can see if he gets a big name, maybe his next 2 fights are like bigger names and more well-known names, and people who can talk and use the mic and build up enough, excitement. I honestly think he can definitely come from out of his father's shadow. They won't no longer say, oh, that's Conor Benn, Nigel Benn's son. It'll just say, that's Conor Benn. And I think he can definitely separate himself from his dad, 100%. But I don't know. You tell me your thoughts down below, and as always, please like and subscribe.